Here we go. Good evening. I'll call to order the Arvada City Council meeting for October 23rd, 2017, and I'll call upon Councilmember Nancy Ford to lead us in the pledge and moment of reflection.
Would you join me in a moment of reflection? And now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kristen Rush, if you'll call roll. Here.
Here.
For the 6,430th time here.
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Marriott.
Here.
Councilmember McGough.
Here. Mr. Pfeiffer.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councilmember David Jones from tonight.
Mr. McGough, if you'll cast your vote. Thank you. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0. Mr. Jones previously advised us that he was going to be out of town for tonight's meeting. The reason Mr. Allard is indicating the number of roll calls he's done, this is the last business meeting of the Arvada City Council. He will be attending as a council member. I expect him here weekly in the audience. And we'll say a little bit more about Mr. Allard later on. So we do have a proclamation, Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. The week before Thanksgiving, November 11th through the 19th, is National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. In conjunction with this national event, the Metro Mayor's Caucus hopes to draw attention to the issues of hunger and homelessness in our region with its Close to Home campaign. I have a proclamation here for the Metro Mayor's Caucus that will be delivered to them, and I'd like to read it. Whereas the City of Arvada is committed to ensuring every member of our community is able to achieve their full potential, because our well-being as individuals and as a community is built over time by a team of people. And whereas National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week is held each year the week before Thanksgiving, serving as an important reminder that for many children, families, seniors, veterans, and others in our community, a lack of food or a safe, stable place to call home are preventing them from reaching their full potential. And whereas the City of Arvada recognizes that if we work together, hunger and homelessness are solvable. And whereas in 2017, Hunger and Homelessness Week is focused on specific steps that individuals and local governments can take to prevent Coloradans from experiencing homelessness and hunger. And whereas, in partnership with the City of Arvada, many organizations such as the Arvada Community Food Bank, Close to Home, and Hunger Free Colorado are committed to building well-being by connecting residents to available services, implementing public policy initiatives, and encouraging all Coloradans to speak up and lend a hand so that we can be a place where everyone has a safe place to call home and enough food to eat. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Arvada, Colorado, that the week of November 11th through the 19th, 2017 is designated National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. And it's dated this 23rd of October, signed by Mayor Williams and all members of City Council.
Okay, we'll present that to the Metro Mayor's Caucus. Thank you, Mr. Marriott. Next, we have public comment on issues not scheduled on our agenda. Julia Morrison, you're signed up. Good evening. Good evening. Before you start, Ms. Morrison, city staff was kind enough to give us the link to the materials you brought to council last week, so we did receive that and appreciate you giving that to us.
Great. That same material, I'm actually going to read a quote out of it, the two that I think are the best. There's this one quote at the very beginning. The author, he wrote in Denverite, talked to people in Denver that feel the displacement, feel the, as Cruz said, the main interviewee, the communicide that is happening, that I also see in my hometown of Arvada. This one person, Ambrose Cruz, a lifelong Northside resident, I feel the most reflected in her comments when she says, They want to feel that sense of community. They want to know that cashier, Asia Dorsey, that's who I want to read. My whole vision was that I was going to come home and buy a home in the 5 Points. For me, it was Arvada. But I couldn't. I was totally priced out. There wasn't a job I could get that would allow me to do that. I was really salty about it, watching the process for all my friends and family members and watching literally everyone in my family relocate. It just hurts. It was a hurt that was really deep and really unsettling. And I feel that way. I came back from Peace Corps. I wasn't able to afford anything. I have a good job. I work at Arvada School. I work with children with autism. It's an important job. I should get respect for that, and I should be able to afford to live in my hometown with that, and I can't because it's just too expensive. And this, I think, is important for you to hear, that the problem of gentrification is not just about how people feel about their communities or what they look like or how fancy the restaurants are. Diana Elliott has been studying the loss of housing accessible to low and moderate income people in cities like Denver, Miami, and Austin for the Urban Institute. The high price of housing has serious implications for the economic vitality of the region, and it's been flagged in recent economic forecasts as a drag on growth. Companies can't attract workers because housing costs so much, and companies can't grow because they can't hire enough workers. The way we've had these conversations in each of these cities, especially with business leaders, they are critically aware that this can create labor market problems, not just now, but into the future. She says, look at the occupations of low to middle income workers. They are the support occupations that keep a city going. Managers, accountants, teachers, customer service reps, registered nurses, salespeople. These are all occupants that are necessary to keep a city going. You can't just have people in your city who work in really high income occupations. As low and middle income workers move further and further out in search of affordable housing, they increasingly take jobs in those communities rather than commute into the city center. You start to see the loss of historic and special places in that neighborhood, like the Eggshell, like the D-Note. What's next? Grandview Grill? We lost Ophelia's. What are we going to lose? God forbid, La Dolce Vita. How long can we sustain 4 coffee shops? And I think about that a lot. I think about a comment made by Marriott about Diversity Up and how that's a spit in my face because they don't need your help for housing. I do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to address City Council at this time? Seeing none, I'll close that public comment portion, and we'll move on to new business. We have a couple of items on the consent agenda. First is a resolution authorizing the submission by the City of Arvada of a Great Outdoors Colorado grant for Arvada West High School, and the second is a resolution accepting a warranty deed from Foothills Community Church for property pertaining to the construction of the Delta Sector Police Station. Mr. Howard?
Move approval of the consent agenda as outlined by the mayor.
Motions for approval of the consent agenda. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0 with Mr. Jones being an excused absence. Next, we have a study session with a group that's near and dear to my heart, the Jefferson County Public Library. I had the good pleasure of being this last Friday night at the reopening of Columbine Library. The citizens of Jefferson County have approved through a vote additional funding that is permitting expansion and remodeling and really doing what we do here in Arvada, taking lasting care of the library system. So we anticipate the presentation. I see a former trustee, Tom Atkins, who served with me on the library board back between, well, I was on from 89 to 99, and I think Tom came in somewhere during that time frame, and that's a volunteer position appointed by the county commissioners, and they do a lot of very good work. Back in the day, it was the construction of the Stanley Lake Library, the Evergreen Library, the current Golden Library, and after I left, the Lakewood Library. Columbine had already come online and is now seeing a beautiful rededication. At the ceremony this last Friday night, former librarian Bill Knott, who's a resident of Arvada, was recognized for, I believe, 38 years of service as the head librarian for Jefferson County, and they have named a portion of the children's room in his honor down at Columbine Library. So That was a great evening. So with that, I'll turn it over to representatives of the library to make their presentation.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, city staff, my name is George Cerrone. I'm a volunteer at the Jefferson County Public Library, and I'm here to give you some idea of what the library does, what it does for your constituents and you, and what we're doing lately. The Jefferson County Public Library is a part of the Jefferson County government. We have 10 buildings or libraries that extend from Arvada to Littleton, from Conifer to Edgewater. With regard to the citizens of Arvada, we have basically 3 libraries that service the people of the city of Arvada. Stanley Lake Library at 84th and Kipling, the Arvada Library at 57th and Old Wadsworth, and for your constituents who live in the southwest part of the city, the Golden Library at 10th Street and Cheyenne Street. Actually, that library is for some of your citizens closer than the other 2. We have bookmobiles, computer lab, home delivery. We have 319 public access computers plus Wi-Fi in all of our buildings. We have over 1 million items that we lend out. In our 2017 budget is $38 million, more or less. And as the mayor's indicated, this is a giant leap from what has been in the past due to the increase in the mill levy that the voters approved in the fall of 2015. How do we provide these services? We provide them through those public library buildings, but also on the web, jeffcolibraries.org. In order to access that, you've got to have a public library card. 63% of the citizens or residents of Jefferson County have a library card. 2.7 million of them last year visited our buildings, and 2 million of them accessed our website. That's more than the Broncos and the Nuggets and the Avalanche and the other sports facilities combined. We have books, CDs, audio books, video. We have 70 research databases through the website. And we also lend out our librarians. We have programs for infants and toddlers, story time, students with their homework, businesses with economic development, seniors, and what we call special population, people with visual, hearing, or physical or language disabilities. Now, what have we been doing lately? We prepared a video for you which shows what we have been doing lately as a result of the increase in our mill levy and increase in our revenue. And I would like to see that, set that now. Thank you.
Before Jeffco voters approved a mill levy increase for the library in November of 2015, JCPL convened a Citizens Advisory Committee. We asked them what library services they wanted to see and what they'd be willing to pay for. The committee, made up of thought leaders from across the county, was unanimous in its feedback. After reviewing inputs from more than 5,000 Jeffco residents, they gave us a clear mandate for the future. Restore core services. They told us to provide more books and materials, restore open hours, update library technology, catch up on delayed capital maintenance, and stabilize library finances.
We know Vibrant communities need to have excellent libraries for success. Before the '09 recession, Jefferson County Public Library was a leader in library services. By 2015, after years of fiscal constraints, they had fallen behind in what was being offered to the public. We wanted to see services restored and return to their previous status, and to be able to give our Jefferson County residents the resources they want and deserve.
In 2016, we made great progress toward restoring core services. We nearly doubled our investment in books and materials. We bought more popular materials, including bestsellers, perennial favorites. We bought more children's materials, including picture books and other early literacy resources. We offered new items too, including laptops and wireless hotspots for checkout. We bought more digital resources, like Consumer Reports, the New York Times, and Mango Languages, and even lynda.com, and patrons love it.
lynda.com is an amazing resource for anyone who wants to learn all kinds of areas of software and digital media and marketing and art, and I wanted access to lynda.com and I just couldn't afford it. And as a teacher, finding out that I can have free access and anyone in Jefferson County who has a library card can access it, I was blown away. I loved it. I created my account immediately, and I was really jazzed to share it with my students. Like the very next day, I even sent out an email to all the staff in Jefferson County Public Schools, and I was like, guys, you got to check out lynda.com. They're doing a free account via the library. The library system is helping you out.
As a result, people are borrowing more and more items from the library. In 2016, people borrowed nearly 8 million items, a 10% increase compared to last year. Another top priority was to restore service hours. In April, JCPL expanded service hours at all 10 libraries. Our larger libraries expanded from 51 hours a week to 65 hours per week, and our smaller libraries opened between 40 and 48 hours a week, making it much more convenient for Jeffco residents to get to the library. We added more story times, a program designed to help our youngest residents gain the skills they need to be ready to read. We added 30 new story times a week, system-wide, for a year-over-year increase of 15%. We also added more and better programs, like 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, a program to motivate parents to read 1,000 books to their preschoolers before they enter school. We held Raise a Reader events to introduce parents to county-wide literacy resources. We introduced STEM Girls, a program designed to help girls excel in science, technology, engineering, and math. We expanded our teen coding camps to teach teens important job skills. And we piloted do-it-yourself labs at the Golden Library, where patrons can come learn how to use electronics, robotics, 3D printers, and more. We expanded our summer reading program, designed to keep kids reading over the summer. This year's program was an unqualified success. More than 36,500 people participated, and as a community, we read more than 27.5 million minutes. More importantly, 87% of parents and caregivers who participated reported that their child maintained or increased their reading skills. We also launched an innovative school contest with summer reading. Nearly 17,500 students participated and read more than 15 million minutes.
Summer reading makes your summer fun. You can go everywhere in the whole wide world and never leave your house. And it helps you keep the reading level you had the year before. It helps you grow so that you're ready for the next grade, so you don't lose anything over the summer. I think that's really important, that kids don't lose what they got over the school year. And then it's just plain fun.
As a result of these improvements, more and more people used the library in 2016. More than 2.7 million people visited our libraries for a year-over-year increase of 9%. And more than 230,000 residents attended programs, a 12% increase compared to 2015. We also worked hard to update technology. We installed more than 200 new computers, replaced outdated network equipment, upgraded servers, and expanded bandwidth across the system. Here, you can see the before and the after results of our server upgrades. More importantly, we provided better access to technology to patrons of all ages. And public computer use increased by 9%. We also worked to catch up on delayed capital maintenance, budgeting more than $2 million to repair and improve our facilities. 2016 projects included, among other things, landscape upgrades at all libraries, carpet repairs at Belmar, new windows at Wheat Ridge, a new boiler at Stanley Lake, and upgrading parking lots at the Lakewood Library and Library Service Center. We also began planning for a major update of the Columbine Library, located on West Bowles Avenue. We got lots of community input, and we can't wait to share the results with you. We also work to stabilize and protect the library's finances. In 2016, the Library Board of Trustees adopted a number of policies to ensure responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars. One states that the library should maintain a minimum fund balance equal to 25% of annual revenues, and that the fund balance should never exceed 50% of revenues. We wanted to ensure that the library has sufficient savings to complete major capital projects and tide us over in case of emergencies or future economic downturns, while also ensuring that we're using taxpayer dollars efficiently and not saving more than we need.
We are grateful to the voters for giving us a mill levy increase and giving us the resources we need to deliver a responsible level of library service. At the same time, we've promised voters that we will only ask for what we need. While we're allowed to ask for a maximum mill levy of 4.5 mills every year, there will likely be years when we won't need to levy the full amount. These policies will help to ensure that we keep that promise.
Now the library is executing on its 2017 plan. We'll continue to add more resources. We'll continue to update library technology. You'll see new service kiosks shown here to make checking out materials faster and more efficient. More new computers, and we hope to add some special technology for patrons as well. We'll complete the Columbine remodel. And finally, we've been invited to partner with the City of Edgewater to put a new 10,000 square foot library in their new Civic Center, planned for opening in 2018.
We've come a long way toward putting the library back on the path to excellence, but there's more to do, and we are absolutely committed to providing the residents of Jefferson County with the high-quality amenities of a progressive, modern library. I hope you'll come in and see the wonderful changes that are taking place.
Mr. Mayor, along with you, a former trustee, and Tom Atkins, a former trustee, a current trustee is with us tonight, Kim Johnson in the audience. If you have any questions from anything that I've said or in the video.
Well, I'm glad you brought Ms. Johnson tonight instead of Trustee John Bodner. It's a lot more credible having. Yeah, you could tell him. Actually, Mr. Bodner's out of town, so I know that's why he's not here. Why he's not here tonight. I think the question I have would be: are there future plans for Arvada? I know that there, even back in the '89 to '99 time frame, there was talk of another Arvada library further west.
Our capital improvement program includes an awful lot of things that we're doing incrementally because of funding. The first, of course, was Columbine, as you've indicated. I believe the next is Belmar to update it, and I believe that we're going to be coming to Arvada after that. I'm not certain, but yes, we're definitely interested in Arvada in that it's a very integral part of the county in our system.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. McGough?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I'd like to just add a couple of things that you didn't mention in your presentation, but are also community benefits of the libraries. And that is the community rooms, the many community meetings that are held in the library. So it provides a venue for lots and lots of groups, and particularly the civic and the governmental groups. So thank you for that. The other thing I would mention is the Stanley Lake Library serves as a trailhead, if you will, for those who wish to access the Rocky Mountain Greenway Trail just behind the library. And as that trailhead was established, of course, it was established in conjunction with the library, and it makes a wonderful parking place for early on Saturday mornings for people to venture out onto the trails and then stop and pick up their books and other reading materials afterwards. So I want to thank you for both of those things too.
Almost all of our libraries have meeting rooms as well as study rooms, and there's a very small charge for commercial or profit-making entities, but nonprofits are usually very small, if at all, charge for our meeting rooms.
The thing that I find so amazing, and Mr. Atkins will remember this as well, is that there was always this conjecture, well, libraries are going to become obsolete. And obviously just the opposite has become true as you look at your year-over-year growth, that even with technology and even with us all with our Kindles, libraries are still immensely popular and an important part of the fabric of a community. And certainly having the Arvada Library move into Old Town did exactly what we wanted it to do, to be an important anchor for all the other development that's been very successful in Old Town. So
we have many programs for persons who are interested in technology, the web, computers. Those things have not reduced the demand for the library services, and particularly, in my view, books.
Right. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you for your volunteerism and what you do to make the library system so great and such an important part of what makes Jefferson County and Arvada so special.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. Okay, next we have a couple public hearings. I'll open the public hearing on the 2018 Annual Action Plan for Housing and Community Development Programs for the City of Arvada, Colorado. At the same time, we'll consider R-17-121, a resolution approving an annual action plan submission for housing and community development programs for the City of Arvada, Colorado, and R-17-122, a resolution authorizing the expenditure of City of Arvada Human Services Funding Pool funds for 2017-2018 to agencies providing emergency help, program assistance, and other assistance to Arvada citizens. Mr. Devon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We're going to start with a presentation from Human Services Advisory Committee member Tom Reynolds.
Actually, I'm Tom Reynolds. My colleague John Giardino is going to start.
Oh, thank you. John Giardino. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight and give our recommendations from the Human Services Advisory Committee. The board received a grant request in September and had a month to review them individually. I was gone for 2 of those weeks, so I had to read really fast, but I got it done. The criteria is a point system, and I think you're probably all pretty familiar with that. It looks at the identified need, the budget reasonableness. One of the biggest things is what benefit there is to Arvada and its citizens. Leveraging of other funds, agency experience, and that's important too, because we want to make sure that the agency that we're going to be contributing to has had the experience to really do the job. Duplication and collaboration of services, and that's another thing. We don't want to keep funding the same thing over and over. and measurable outcomes. And that's something that really is critical to us. Again, we want to make sure that what we're funding actually has the anticipated results. So the agencies that receive the funds must provide quarterly reports to the city regarding how they use these funds. The board met just a week ago on October 17th to share their evaluations. They were all combined, and we came up with a rating system and went through each of the requests and approached them individually based on these criteria. This year, there were 22 agencies requesting funding totaling $421,262. Our decisions, again, were based on those articulated parameters that I mentioned earlier. Given the competitive nature of the process, we also place a lot of value on the application itself, the quality, how thorough it is, answering the questions that we ask, and so on. Finally, in addition to emphasizing programs providing for basic needs such as food, shelter, health, and safety, this year we gave extra thought about agencies that were providing rental assistance given the rising cost of housing and a growing homeless population. The City Human Services Advisory Committee recommends funding for the following public services as follows. And we have here, I'm on a different page. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We had $135,000 from the public funding. 75,000 of that went to A Precious Child, which assists children and families of need, in need of basic essentials.
This says 7,500.
7,500, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Thank you. I wish.
Right.
5,000 to Archway Housing and Services, Family Services at Willow Green, 14,250 Arvada Community Food Bank for their new Housing Choice Voucher Program, which they're just now undertaking. 22,000 to the Arvada Community Food Bank for Client Financial Assistance Fund, which is taking over some of the services that were formerly provided by Interchurch Arms. Unfortunately, Interchurch Arms ceased operations early this year, but Arvada Community Food Bank is going to be taking that over. $3,000 for Audio Information Network, which provides audio information and services for blind and print disabled. $5,000 to Hope House, providing educational and housing support for teen mothers. $26,250 to Jeffco Action Center Rental Assistance and Stabilization Program. $25,000 to Jefferson Center for mental health care for indigent Arvada residents. $15,000 to Project Angel Heart, which provides nutritional programs for critically ill citizens, and $12,000 to VOA Meals on Wheels nutritional services for homebound elderly. Do you want to do the CBDG?
Sure. There's additional supplemental funds that come out of CDGB funds. The long-term support for Arvada Community Food Bank's Client Choice Food Program, $30,000. $20,000 for the Karen Clinic, direct health care for children of low-income families from birth through 18 years. $15,000 for the Family Tree Homelessness Program, and recommending $10,000 Seniors Resource Center, which is support for seniors and their families. So these recommendations come to you in the form of two separate resolutions. The CDBG funds would be your first action, and the general fund the second. Finally, if we could put a little plea in here from our group. We've been working together for a number of years and appearing with you. But it's been many years since the amount of funding from the city of Arvada has changed at all. We've been working with the same 135,000 from general fund rather that has not increased since 2011. But as we all know, the needs do continue to increase, and as we've all seen recently, there's a significant issue going on with homelessness and keeping people from being homeless. Just got this a week or so at my home with the Arvada paper that talks about the effort to put together a network for homeless sheltering during cold weather. Hope that goes forward, and that drove a lot of our thinking on how to put these funds forward to you. But it's getting quite a bit more difficult each year. The only really opportunity we had this year was to redistribute the funds that came from Interchurch Arms since they went out of business, and we were grateful that the food bank stepped up to really take on that function and respond to the city of Arvada's request. But we are going to need a little bit more funds in the future. Do love the road work that you're putting effort in, but this needs a little help. That's infrastructure too. So we'd ask you to consider an increase in the future. Thanks, and we'll both be happy to field any questions from you.
Any questions from council or action? Yeah, John?
One other comment. There was actually one organization that we didn't fund at all. None of them, or very few of them, did we fund to their full request. We did talk a little bit about coming back after the first of the year and hopefully getting a supplemental funding so that we can go back and redistribute some of that. So we may be back. So.
That's fair warning.
Okay.
We appreciate that, and I assume that council would ask the city manager to look into, is there any opportunity for additional funding or not, and we can certainly have that discussion as a council. But I hear your requests. We'll run it through staff to see what their recommendations and thoughts are, and then we as a council will act on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, I've got 3 people who wish to speak. Mr. Allard?
Do you want to close the public hearing before we ask questions, or?
Good point. Is there any member of the public that would like to address City Council before I,
Yeah.
Mr. Devon?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we should invite Ed Talbot to make a few comments as well.
I was hoping not to do that, but we can. But first, are there any members of the public that would like to address City Council before I open the floor to Mr. Talbot? Yes, ma'am.
Do I do this swearing
No,
thing?
this
Okay.
is, you don't have to swear at this one. You can swear at us, but you don't have to be
Okay.
sworn in.
As you know, this is my favorite subject. As you know, I think a lot about affordable housing, and I think a lot about how if maybe we kept the market in check and stopped it from taking advantage of residents, we wouldn't need to be spending this extra funding. Right now we do. We totally need it. But maybe we can also kind of stem some of the displacement and some of the need for help, for financial assistance by allowing development to be more affordable instead of only luxury. And I quote Marriott again, diversity up.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address City Council at this time? Seeing that, I'll close the public comment portion. Thank you, Mr. Allard, for pointing that out. Mr. Talbot, would you like to address City Council?
Only upon your invitation, Mr. Mayor.
You are so invited. People who are watching, Mr. Talbot and I have known each other for many, many years, and we have a fun repartee that goes back and forth. So, or at least I think it's fun.
I'm laughing.
Yes, that's right. Yes, you are.
Well, once again, we are obviously at that important time of the year where we're taking a look at the community development block grant and, of course, the human services funding. And a lot of this is obviously familiar to members of the council, but I think it is somewhat important to take at least a couple minutes to explain how important this grant is and generally how it operates, because again, this is the return of federal taxpayer money back to the community. It's an important grant we depend upon, obviously, given the needs we have. So I was going to run hopefully very briefly through that and give you the funding recommendations for the block grant as well.
Thank you.
So again, this is act that basically provides for the community development block grant was done back in 1974, and it shows the longevity for this grant, and that indeed it is important for communities throughout this country. And indeed, this has been something that we've depended upon since that time for getting a variety of things done into in the community. The requirements of the program is that we do have to submit what you might recall is a 5-year consolidated plan. Our current span for that plan is 2015 through 2019. And then we'll have to do another one starting in 2020 in all likelihood. 70% of the funds have to be spent on activities that benefit lower moderate income persons, but we are allowed, or I should say the law does allow us to meet 3 basic areas, which is to eliminate slums or blighting conditions, benefit lower moderate income, or if it were necessary for urgent community needs, which generally would be defined as something that might result from a disaster. Then every year, we basically do an annual action plan, and that annual action plan is what you're considering tonight, where we actually take a look at specific uses for the funds for the community development block grant. So some idea of what we can fund. One thing about the block grant, it does give us a lot of discretion within certain restraints as to what we can do. And I won't read all these obviously, but this gives you an idea of of the primary items or areas where we could fund. One of those being the third bullet from the bottom, public services, again within certain limits. And again, this is basically what relates to the presentation you just had before mine. There's certain things we can't fund. Some of these are relatively obvious, but we can't use it for the acquisition, construction, or reconstruction of buildings for the general conduct of government, political activities, certain income repayments. Interestingly enough, the construction of new housing by a local government such as us. You cannot use the funds for building housing. You can use it to provide the type of infrastructure that might be necessary. It might be a roads or a sewer line or something on this line, but you can't use it physically build housing with the grant. So this just looks at our entitlements. The grant we get every year is called an entitlement. We do not compete for the funds. The amount of funds we get is established by formula, and then the actual dollar amount that formula cranks out depends on the annual appropriations of the U.S. Congress. So we have to wait for those appropriations to be established. That goes through the formula at HUD, and then we're told or informed how much we're going to get. I'm estimating, and I've done this for the last couple of years, given the way things sort of been laying out at the federal side, a grant of $400,000, and that's what these recommendations I'll touch base with you on are predicated on that. Give you an example, last year we estimated 400 grand, we did get 465. It was a bit of a bump above what we thought we would get, but we try to stay conservative, not knowing exactly what may come out during the federal appropriation process. So some things we have to keep in mind. We cannot use more than 15% of the grant. 15% of the grant can be used for new or expanded public services. No more than 20% of the grant can be used for administration or planning activities. And all activities must meet those 3 areas I mentioned, the primary one being low and moderate income households. So what are we looking at for 28? I'm sorry, this says 2017, that's a mistake. It's actually for 2018. The estimated city CDBG is $400,000. We looked at a variety of funding requests. These included both the human services and funding requests internally for us, which generally are general program admin, central repairs. And when you total that whole amount up for all the requests, it would come to about $772,000. The funded requests for 2018 that are being requested, again, we looked at $400,000 and putting those limits on those. I apologize, it says 2017, should say 2018.
No problem.
My apologies.
It's still 2017 right now.
Well, that's true. Thank you for that. You can pull my bacon out of the fire with that one. So the funding we're looking at for 2018 is $229,000 for the Essential Repairs Program for its operation and for loans and grants. It lets you know that that's not the entire cost for the program. We take funds from other sources to fund the program through the year. And those would come from program income. We have a revolving loan fund that's made up of repayments from prior loans that are repaid back to us. We have some carry forward funds that do come to us. And as a backstop, if necessary, we do have some funds allocated out of the HODAG grant that would be our backstop if necessary to basically get right to our projected number of units. And then we have $96,000 in CDBG funds for program administration, and $75,000 is the amount for the human services that covered that CDBG portion of the human services. So that's the program we're looking at. We're recommending you tonight. The action you would take with the a vote on the resolution on the annual action plan would be to approve that plan, and then we'll submit that to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Our cutoff is November 15th to get that in. Unfortunately, the federal government's under continuing resolution right now as they go forward, so we may not be submitting our application by that deadline if the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development informs us they don't want to see the application until they're ready for it. So.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, did you have any other questions or comments?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions. The Arvada Food Bank 1, 2, and 3, I understand, I hope that the reason you got 3 items on this is because you're taking over the Arms Church functions. If you are, I would suggest you change your terminology. Arvada, it sounds like we got 3 food banks.
Mr. Allard, if I might, a number of agencies this year submitted numerous grants, including the food bank. They submitted 3 specific applications, and we simply used the titles as they submitted them. So Food Bank 1, Food Bank 2, Food Bank 3. So I understand where the confusion is coming from, but they were very specific in how they identified those needs, and the advisory committee made those allocations based on their requests. So one is specifically taking over some of the responsibilities that Interchurch Arms took on for all of those years. One is specifically for food. One is more on the Housing Choice Bridges to Opportunity program. I hope that helps.
Yes, that explains it, but I was suggesting in the terminology ought to be clarified so that I would understand that without having to, I mean, it's not a correct title. And number 2 question is Hope House number 2. I don't recall, is there a Hope House number 1?
And again, Mr. Allard, this is the same situation where Hope House submitted 2 different grants. The first grant was actually for sidewalk construction as they're doing their new facility. The committee chose not to fund that. The second grant had to do with the GED support for the teen moms. So they only chose to fund request number 2. So understand exactly what you're saying. It's a little confusing. We
Again,
need to
the terminology is what bothers me. I don't understand. It doesn't mean anything to me. And secondly, then, what does a Hope House do? Or don't do?
John or Tom, do you want to respond to
Yeah.
that?
What Hope House does is it provides educational and housing support for teen mothers. That's their focus. Yeah. One other comment real quickly, and you were talking about the food bank number 1, 2, 3. In our application packets, the Food Bank of Arvada said that they are, and I suspect you're probably aware of it, but they're considering changing their name because they're going to be providing so many different services that in fact Food Bank doesn't fit anymore. So I suspect that should we get applications from them again, each one will be hopefully in a different name so that you can understand better where they're coming from. But
right, well, this is my 24th time at looking at this, and that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Pfeiffer?
I think there's other people that have questions. I just want to reserve.
Motion?
Yeah, the
Okay.
motion, please.
Ms. Ford?
I just had one question on the Senior Resource Center. Have you been, in their request, have they stated whether or not their services or the need for their services has increased? Because I noticed that their amount that you're recommending for funding has stayed the same, basically, and I was just, that kind of struck me, given that our population is increasing.
And that was a prior request from the council that we take a look at that. But again, our general guidance what we've had is we don't have additional funding to give out. We had to make some very difficult choices. And so we basically said there was no new funding coming in for us to allocate. We really would like to have given more to several of these groups, such as Senior Resource. And as John pointed out, we even kind of defunded one that we like a lot, but these challenges around especially housing, we're just couldn't ignore them. But
Are they really taking precedence, the issues with housing?
this year it was. In prior years, we took an extra effort to really look at seniors as well. We kept some of those items, but we weren't able to increase them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pfeiffer.
Debating if, I guess I should, before I make comments, I should make the motion, right? And then I can put my comments. I move that resolution 17-121, a resolution approving an annual action plan submission for housing and community development programs for the city of Arvada, Colorado be approved.
Motions for approval?
So I just have a few comments I would like to make. One, this is probably one of my most favorite thing to do all year, and I still don't think it's enough money as well as the committee. But I just want to clarify a few things that were discussed today. The Arvada Community Food Bank has changed its name. It's called the Community Table. And the reason why the Community Table has changed its name to that is because it is doing more with housing and enablement than food. More than 50% of its programs now is supporting the city's efforts, Ed, I think you're aware, with the vouchers, getting folks through programs, getting them GEDs, tutoring. There's a lot of other programs that are going on. And when you look at that, and now I think the city of Wheat Ridge is now participating because that's within the community table, and Westminster is now starting to participate. You've gained a lot of efficiencies with what little money is given, even though it's 3 of them. It's very little money. Does a huge impact for a nonprofit to do that work versus government doing that work. And so I'm excited to see that the continued partnership, because that's what I see this as, is continued partnership with the table and the other organizations that are getting this, because I think they all add a lot of value. I think the Williams are participants in the Hope House, right? Very heavily involved, and I was raised by a single mother, so and she was 14 when she had me. My mom and I joke that we'll be in the retirement home together, but so that's very near and dear. So all these programs that you do, I can talk about each one of them, and they're very, very important. And I want to thank your service for doing what you do, weeding through all of those to try to figure out which ones work and which ones we can fund with limited resources. It's a tough challenge because I think we need to do it for everyone. And I, again, appreciate another years of your dedication and service to this effort. And hopefully council will have a good discussion down the road about changes maybe. So with that being said, I will absolutely be supporting this motion.
Good. Mr. McGough, if you'll cast your vote. Thank you. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0 with Mr. Jones being an excused absence. You may make your second motion.
Let me pull it up. I move that resolution 17-122, a resolution authorizing the expenditures of City of Arvada Human Services Funding Pool Funds for 2017-2018 to agencies providing emergency help, program assistance, and other assistance to Arvada citizens be approved.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0, Mr. Jones being an excused absence. I'll echo Mayor Pro Tem Pfeiffer's statements in terms of the committee. We have, first of all, I think our Human Services Advisory Committee does yeoman's work for us without compensation, and you bring a level of expertise that if City Council was simply trying to do it themselves, we frankly don't have the diversity and the expertise you all have got. The matrix system you developed a few years ago, I think, has been spot on. And frankly, having the advisory committee on this takes it out of the political realm. Everyone up here has their own favorite charity and their own charity that they either give to financially or through their sweat and tears. And by having you all make the recommendations, it takes it out of that political arena and puts it where it ought to be, with people who are looking at these with very level heads, who are considering pros and cons, who are looking at the quality of the applications. And you know, I appreciate in particular this year your emphasis on housing and homelessness issues, because it's a huge issue for the entire metropolitan area. So thank you for the emphasis on that. We will direct city manager to see if there's any additional funds that can be scraped together. You're right, we've got a huge emphasis on our roads, but we have other infrastructures, and human infrastructure is important as well. So thank you all for your time, your energy, and your work. Mr. Allard?
I join in your comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to public comment. If there's anybody else that would like to address City Council at this juncture of the meeting. Seeing none, I'll close the second portion of public comment, move it on to City Council reports. Mr. Marriott?
Yeah, just a quick one. Saturday, I attended the ribbon cutting to the Arvada Marketplace at 52nd and Wadsworth, and after that, had lunch with my family at one of the new restaurants down there. And for everybody in Arvada who hasn't been down there yet, get down there. There's some great new spots there, and a terrific redo of what was kind of an older suburban shopping center. It's really changed the whole look and feel of the place. They've created great atmosphere there, and just excellent revitalization of a shopping center that wasn't at the end of its life, but certainly needed some freshening up. And I'll congratulate the shopping center owner for having the vision to actually subtract from their shopping center to make it better, and executing extremely well and making a great product.
Yeah, it was a very nice event. Mr. Pfeiffer?
I just want to report I had my second FCC travels last week, and the only tidbit I can share there that I thought was interesting is, you know, we all get those robocalls, and we spoke with the Enforcement Bureau of the FCC, and they just recently successfully, they summoned a robocaller out of Florida, a $145 million fine. And if the robocall was, hey, this is Marriott, so you got Marriott, got a vacation, why don't you hold on the line and we'll give you your vacation, and then they would transfer you to a Mexico firm, and they were misleading. And so they've been summoned now, or the one individual, it's one man with computers in his house, $145 million summons. Just so you know, robocalls annoy us all. They are being addressed one at a time, but I think card services will always continue to call us forever. So we'll keep hunting those down. But it was a good meeting. It talks about local control, and we talk about some things with the commission in regards to the things that annoy us all the time. So they're trying to make things better for us, so we'll see.
As I indicated previously, this is our last business meeting before the election, and at the week following the election will be the swearing in of our new council members, two of which are sitting up here already, knowing that they are unopposed, so they can breeze back into office unless the undervote is much higher than I think it's going to be. But we'll have one new council member replacing Mr. Allard. I will make some comments, and I'm sure others will make some comments that night upon Mr. Allard stepping down from council, so we'll all reserve the opportunity to make those comments that evening. But I did want to acknowledge that tonight is Don Allard's last regular business meeting on City Council. He has served this community faithfully and diligently throughout his many years of service. So, and then the following week, we will have an opportunity on a Friday evening for a reception for Mr. Allard, and I'm sure we'll look forward to.
I'm reserving my farewell address for the 13th.
Okay, fine. Very good. Mr. Devon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we will not have our workshop until November 27th. We'll be discussing on November 27th the Arvada Center Master Plan, metro districts, and traffic safety. So that'll be on the 27th, and our next business meeting will actually be on November 20th.
Very good. Okay, we stand, or I'm sorry, Mr. Daly, do you have anything for us tonight?
I'm going to break tradition, Mayor and members of council, and as it is tradition for the council members to praise, and rightly so, outgoing council members, it is not tradition for the staff to do so when the other meeting occurs in November. And so on behalf of Mr. Devon and Judge Cook, myself, and all the members of the staff, what an honor it's been to serve the citizens of Arvada with Don Allard. And we appreciate all the support that you've given us as a staff, and we appreciate all the service that you have given to the citizens, not only as a council member, but as a staff member, both as city manager and assistant city manager during your tenure here, and we are in awe of the service that you have provided. So thank you so much.
A great way to end the evening. Thank you.